Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Ask a Property Manager. This is episode number 77 and today is June 30th, 2021. We're coming to you from Studio 2.0 here at Own Buffalo. I'm Andrew Schultz, Principal Broker of Own Buffalo Inc. And on today's show, we're going to be taking a look at, we're going to be talking about the extension of the federal eviction moratorium, New York State ending their statewide state of emergency. We're going to be taking a look at some common leasing issues, and we'll answer some questions from housing providers around the country. Before we jump into all that, we're going to go ahead and plug our social media. New episodes of Ask a Property Manager every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern. You can catch the replays on our Facebook page as well as on our YouTube page, youtube.com/ownbuffalo on the same day. And last but not least, don't forget about our Instagram. New episode of the Rent Prep for Landlords podcast drops this week. That'll be coming out tomorrow on Thursday. This week, we're taking a look at renters applying for a property without actually taking a look at it first, how to minimize the amount of time that your rental spends vacant, and how to handle tenants that make incremental rent payments. So don't miss out on that. New episodes of the Rent Prep for Landlords podcast drop every other Thursday, anywhere podcasts are heard or over at rentprep.com/podcast. We are going to go ahead and jump into the news of the day here, starting with this article through CNBC. The CDC extended the national eviction ban through July, what this means for renters. This was published originally last week on June 23rd. That would have been right after we had our, right after we had last week's episode, and it was updated the day after. But I did want to make sure that we cover this piece of information just so everyone's on the same page. Struggling renters will have a little more time before they have to worry about eviction. The CDC announced on Thursday that they've extended the national eviction moratorium through the end of July. The policy, which has been in place since September 2020, prohibits almost all evictions for non-payment of rent. The ban was previously slated to expire on June 30th. The Biden administration announced on Thursday the Biden administration on Thursday also extended the foreclosure moratorium for federally backed mortgages by a month to July 31st. Both the federal eviction and foreclosure extensions are intended to be the final ones that renters and homeowners receive, according to the administration. Homeowners who have not yet taken advantage of forbearance can do so through September 30th, according to the White House. In July, federal agencies will also offer borrowers payment reduction options that will allow more homeowners to stay in their homes, the administration said. Advocates have put pressure on the administration to keep the eviction ban in place for longer. Congress has allocated $45 billion in rental assistance, but the money has been painfully slow to reach people, and more than 10 million Americans remain behind on their rent. Any extension at this point is hugely welcome, but it's hard to tell how quickly the rental assistance programs are going to get to the point where they've met the huge demand that is out there, said John Pollock, coordinator of the National Coalition for a Right to Civil Counsel. The extensions are part of a broader initiative the White House outlined Thursday to help renters and homeowners hit hard by the COVID pandemic. It's an all-hands-on-deck challenge to help landlords that are hurt but keep families in their homes, White House officials said. The Department of Justice is urging state and local courts to participate in anti-eviction diversion efforts. Diversion programs can help landlords and tenants reach agreements and get access to emergency rental assistance to help keep families in homes while making landlords whole, according to administration officials. Among other measures, officials are also encouraging major cities across the country to put together coalitions and community-specific plans to avoid any potential for a flood of evictions. This is not just an ask, the White House officials said on Thursday. There are resources to help with these policies. Here's what renters need to know about the current moratorium. Who's eligible? To get protection from eviction, you'll need to attest on a declaration form that you meet a few requirements, such as that you earned less than $99,000 in 2020 or 2021. You'll need to have experienced a financial hardship during the coronavirus pandemic, such as high medical expenses or a reduction in hours at work. Renters are also required to confirm that an eviction could lead them to become homeless or needing to double up with family or others, and that they've tried to apply for rental assistance. This form should go to your landlord. What if I'm already facing eviction? Try speaking to your landlord. Tell them this is going to be pushed back another month. If your landlord ignores the moratorium extension, get a lawyer as soon as possible. You can find low-cost or free legal help regarding an eviction in your state at lawhelp.org. Tenants now have right to counsel in Washington, Maryland, and Connecticut, as well as a number of cities, including New York, Philadelphia, and Seattle. What else can I do? Apply for rental assistance. The National Low-Income Housing Coalition has a state-by-state list of the 429 programs giving out money for struggling renters. 429 programs. That's a lot. You could receive up to 18 months of assistance, including a mix of payments for back and future rent. Also, familiarize yourself with your other rights in addition to the CDC's ban on evictions, which will likely last until August. A number of states and cities have moratoriums or other protections for helping renters that will last longer. New York, for example, has extended its eviction ban until September. Meanwhile, in Minnesota, lawmakers just struck a deal prohibiting the eviction of any renters who are in the process of applying for rental assistance. That protection will last for 12 months until June 2022. Tenants in Nevada also can't be forced out if the rental assistance application is pending or if their landlord refuses to accept the aid. So, obviously, I wanted to highlight this article to show that the CDC eviction moratorium had been kicked back another month. There are still options for tenants. If you're a tenant watching this, there are a lot of options available to you in the ability to find rental assistance and things like that. If you speak to your landlord, more than likely, if you have a back due balance, your landlord wants to work with you. They want to help you find that rental assistance because it's hurting them too. So if you're a tenant and you're struggling to make rent payments, talk to your landlord. Really, so much can be handled just by communicating. I think if there's anything that I want to make sure that we convey in this article, communication in both directions, landlord and tenant, will make this entire process a lot easier for everybody. Moving on, this one is from the last week as well. This one was also published right after our last episode, but I wanted to make sure we covered it here. Governor Cuomo announces New York State ending its COVID-19 state disaster emergency on June 24th. Governor Andrew M. Cuomo today announced that New York State will end the state disaster emergency declared on March 7th, 2020 to fight COVID-19. Given New York's dramatic progress against COVID-19 with the success in vaccination rates and the declining hospitalization and positivity statewide, the state of emergency will expire after Thursday, June 24th. Federal CDC guidance will remain in effect, which includes masks for unvaccinated individuals, as well as all riders on public transit and in certain buildings, such as healthcare, nursing homes, correctional facilities, and homeless shelters. State and local government health departments will still be able to ensure mask rules and other health precautions are adhered to in those settings. Since March 2020, a variety of actions have been taken by the executive order to assist in the rapid response to the pandemic by state agencies, local governments, hospitals, and businesses by both temporarily suspending or modifying laws, as well as utilizing temporary directives. Hospitals were able to add space and staffing, meetings were authorized to occur virtually, and various deadlines were extended to accommodate a changed landscape. I'm not going to continue to read through here because it just goes in and talks about a bunch of different data that we don't need to delve into here. But the important thing that I wanted to highlight in this article is that New York State's eviction moratorium likely will not be extended past the end of August based on this here, at least in my opinion. Could change. I mean, could be, they could kick it down the road again, I suppose. But based on the ending of the state disaster emergency, I would think that that would be, a key indicator that, hey, it's time to start loosening up with these eviction moratoriums and things like that. I think there's going to be a lot of questions that need to be answered if the eviction moratorium here in the state of New York is pushed back from August 31st even further into the year, especially given the news that the state of emergency here in the state of New York is ending. This is good news. I'm glad to see that we're starting to return to some semblance of normalcy here in New York State. I just hope that they continue to move forward and drop the eviction moratorium so that people can start operating their businesses the way that they see fit. One more news article for you here today. We're going a little heavy on the news. Coldwell Banker CEO says investors snatching up homes is not a driving force in the hot housing market. This one comes to us via CNBC as well. And I wanted to bring this article to everybody's attention because there's a lot of speculation on institutional investors, hedge funds and things like that, snapping up property in markets and creating an artificial housing shortage. And this article talks about that a little bit. Institutional investors rushing in to buy properties is not the main reason for the ultra-hot U.S. housing market, Coldwell Banker CEO Ryan Gorman told CNBC on Tuesday. In an interview on the exchange, the real estate executive acknowledged the potential for institutional buyers to add further pressures on prices as they look for potential hedges against inflation. Today, though, it's a very, very small percentage of the overall market, said Gorman, whose company Coldwell Banker is a part of Realogy Holdings Corp. Yes, cash offers are very high, but the vast majority of cash offers, even in multiple offer situations, are coming from individuals who are looking to occupy the home just as they would any other. In the first quarter, investor home purchases rose on a year-over-year basis for the first time since the start of the COVID pandemic, according to a May report from the real estate brokerage Redfin. Corbyn said he expects institutional investors to remain attracted to residential real estate, including both multi and single family rentals. In terms of impact on the overall market, though, we're talking about percentage points, low single digits at this point, with some markets trending a little bit higher than that. It's something to watch, but not as concerning as it might sound. The housing market has been one of the strongest pieces of the U.S. economy during the pandemic, sparked by a number of factors, including affordable financing, a desire for more space, and increased geographic flexibility thanks to remote work. That influx of demand, coupled with a lack of houses for sale, has caused prices to rocket higher. In April, homes posted an annual gain of 14.6%, which is up from 13.3% in the month prior. According to S&P CoreLogic Case-Shiller National Home Price Index. Say that 5 times fast. Some people will have worried about the housing market getting too hot, potentially creating yet another bubble as prices move to higher and higher levels. Corbyn said the U.S. simply needs more homes to be on the market because the fundamental factors influencing would-be buyers are likely to stick around. Additional inventory is the solution to all that ails us at the moment, he said. New home construction is way behind where it needs to be, he said. Despite higher builder confidence, it's going to continue to lag. We're missing the 4 to 6 million homes that we need today. It's interesting to see someone state so plainly that we need 4 to 6 million homes. Like, we're just flat out of inventory, basically. So it's interesting to see this happening. It's actually, this article doesn't surprise me as much as you might think, because I'm not seeing a ton of institutional money jumping into the game, at least here in our market, though I don't know as though Buffalo would be one of the first markets that institutional money would look at necessarily. But it is one of those things that when we start to see more foreclosures, so for example, here in the state of New York, it takes 24 to 36 months to foreclose from end to end on a property. We're not going to see any of that happening until after the state moratorium ends at the end of August at a minimum. But after that point, you have a 2 to 3 year span, and then I think that you're going to see a lot of foreclosures start hitting the market. And if that's the case, at that point, I think you're going to start to see a big pile of institutional money find its way into the Western New York market here. And I think that at that point, we're going to have to start worrying a little bit more about just exactly what will be done in the market here. I think it's going to have a severe impact on housing prices when it starts to happen. That said, by the time a foreclosure gets to the point where it is in the state where it's, been through the full foreclosure process, they're usually pretty beat up. The banks don't do a great job of taking care of them. So by the time it gets to that point, the institutional money is still going to be looking for the best possible deal. And they know how to do the analysis to determine if they're getting the best possible deal. So watch for that, but watch for it, 2-3 years down the road. Get yourself in a position where you're ready to buy in that 2 to 3 year time frame. Let's look at some funny stuff. I saw this, I think I pulled this off Lighter Side of Real Estate on Facebook, and it made me laugh because you always see the refrigerators that have the paneling on them that matches the cabinetry and stuff like that. Well, I guess this is just the latest and greatest in that trend. The designer decor, the designer decor dishwasher. I think my favorite part of this is that they didn't even bother to cut the tile on the right side of the image. It's all just kind of overhanging and messy. But yeah, that's a true DIY miracle right there. And then this one, this is what happens when you don't flick the straps and say that's not going anywhere. That's probably one of my all-time favorite dad jokes, so I figured I would share that one as well. All right, we're going to go ahead and jump into our questions from housing providers around the country, starting with this one on charging a cleaning fee. I have tenants that are moving out soon after the first year. Do I charge a cleaning fee? Do I charge a cleaning fee for the next tenants if they leave the house somewhat clean, or is that on me to pay a cleaning fee? Thanks. A couple of typos there in that one. So I'm going to actually pull up some language from our lease as well so you guys can, whoops, wrong button. We'll take a look at this here. This is actually the language on cleaning in our lease. Our lease requires the tenants to clean the apartment thoroughly when they move out. And if there's carpet we require it to be professionally steam cleaned. We don't want somebody using a rug doctor because a rug doctor is just going to leave a bunch of detergent behind in the carpet. They never get everything out. And then 2 weeks after everything, you've got all that dust and dirt attaching to the detergent and the carpets look worse than when you started. No rug doctors. We want them done with a professional steam clean, a truck mounted or a van mounted steam cleaner, professionally done properly. Most tenants will leave things broom clean. I'm going to go ahead and switch back to the question here. Most tenants will leave things broom clean at best, and we end up sending a cleaning crew through and charging against the tenant's deposit. That said, some tenants go further than other tenants when it comes to cleaning. Some tenants will do it spotless. They will make sure that the place is as clean as it was when they move in. Most tenants won't. What I will mention is that most tenants are only going to clean what you see. So you'll find that they forget to do things like wipe out cabinets and drawers, clean the inside of the stove, clean under the refrigerator, stuff like that. If they don't do it, when we have to send somebody in to do it, yes, we charge for that because we want to make sure that the incoming tenant gets an apartment that's as clean as possible. And there are times that we've had to offer a cleaning credit to an incoming tenant because there's stuff that was not clean or not clean to their level of satisfaction or whatever the case. We take a look at that on a case-by-case basis, and then if adjustment needs to be made, we go ahead and make it. But all that being said, the most common things that I would say that are missed are going to be items left in cabinets, items left in closets, not cleaning the stove inside and out, not cleaning underneath appliances, things of that nature. Just keep in mind that your incoming tenant is going to expect a clean apartment, and if your outgoing tenant doesn't leave the apartment clean, yes, you need to have that apartment cleaned or clean it yourself, and yes, that you should be charging for that. That's definitely something that I would make sure that you have in your lease is some sort of a cleaning fee. On to our next question on common leasing questions, and this one's a double header. We'll start with the first one. Hi team, a current resident is asking for an adult relative to move into the apartment. I've done a background check on him. Would you recommend anything else be done, such as adding them as a signer onto the lease? And then the second question, when we take applications for rentals, we require all adults that would be living there to fill one out. However, I have a situation where 4 adults have been approved for 1 2-bedroom apartment, 2 unmarried couples, and I want to ask who will be signing the lease. Maybe I'm overthinking this, but would you ask the person that initiated the inquiry who will be signing and who would be legally responsible? So we're going to go ahead and answer both of these. Go ahead and run your full application process. We'll start with the first one. Go ahead and start with running your full application process, not just a background check. Have them fill out the application, get their pay information, do verifications on their landlord, personal references, verify their income, and then run your credit and background check. Do the full gamut. Run the full gamut every time you're talking about adding someone to your lease. You want to know as much as you can about someone before they move into your building, because once they're in your building, hey, it's going to be real difficult to get rid of them. So after you have everything back and everything checks out, you're comfortable with that person's application based on your written criteria, then you're going to want to have everyone sign a lease addendum indicating that the new person is accepting the condition of the property as of the day that they move into it, that they are jointly and severally liable for rent. All tenants are jointly and severally liable for rent, and that the new person is responsible for all the terms and conditions of the original lease. Make sure that the new person gets a copy of that lease, and then make sure that you keep that addendum right along with the lease so that if there's ever any question as to when that person came on, that you have that information readily available. The other thing I would mention is when you come up on your next lease renewal, just do a fresh new lease with everybody signed on it at that point. That's probably the easiest way to handle that particular situation. As far as the other question goes, you need to have all 4 people sign the lease. You've got 4 adults. It sounds like you've got 4 adults. They all applied. And actually, yeah, it says in here 4 adults. So you have 4 adults all over the age of 18. They're all jointly and severally responsible for that lease. Make sure that you have all 4 on the lease and make sure that you have the signature for all 4 parties so that all 4 are responsible parties on that lease. That's absolutely the best way to handle that situation. The more people that you can make responsible on that lease, the better your chances of actually being able to collect in the event of a default or something along those lines. So that would be how I would handle those two leasing issues. Moving on to our third and final question. No pets means no pets. Hello everyone, I have a prospective tenant who wants to bring a golden retriever. There is a no pets policy in my advertisement. My concern is property damage and I'm looking for advice and feedback. Thank you in advance. So this one is actually pretty straightforward. You're advertising a no pets apartment. Somebody wants to bring a pet in. The answer is simply no. Move on to the next candidate. Changing your criteria for what you're willing to accept in your apartment midstream could cause you headaches if you have other people that chose not to apply for the apartment because they knew that there was a no pets policy in place, and then you turn around and alter that policy and rent to somebody with a pet. I always recommend set your policy prior to listing and then keep that policy in place all the way through until you've selected a new tenant. Don't make policy changes in the middle of when you're trying to find a tenant. It's bad policy to make that sort of a change. Don't do it. It's only going to cause you headaches. As for property damage, you never know if an animal is going to cause damages or not. It just really depends on the animal, and it depends on the owner and how well behaved and how well trained the animal is and how attentive the owner is to the animal to ensure that damage isn't being done. So there's a lot of variables there. One thing that I will say is that even if the pet doesn't do, we don't have a dog chewing on woodwork or something like that, pets do cause normal wear and tear over the course of time. It's one of the untold costs of pet ownership. I experience it. I have a dog in my home, and we experience wear and tear at a higher level than if it was just humans living in the home, simply because dogs cause wear and tear. It's a fact of life. It's one of those untold costs of pet ownership. So that is something to keep in mind. Even if there's not additional damages as a result of the animal, there will likely be additional wear and tear if you're in a position where you decide that you want to accept animals into your rentals. Of course, if this is an emotional support animal or if it's a service animal, the rules are very, very, very different. We're not going to jump into all of that here today. If you guys are interested, let us know if you want to see an episode on emotional support animals and service animals. I'll actually bring in an expert to discuss that topic, because that's one of those things where the laws are not necessarily the clearest, and having an expert come in to explain that, I think, would be to the benefit of everybody. So if that's something you're interested in, let us know down in the comments or send us an email over at hello@ownbuffalo.com. Let us know, and we will see if we can get something like that set up. But that pretty much wraps us up for this week's episode of the Ask a Property Manager show. I almost said wraps us up for another episode of the Rent Prep for Landlords podcast, but that's tomorrow. So we love producing Ask a Property Manager, and you can definitely help us to improve by dropping a question in the comments, either on Facebook or on YouTube, and your question may be picked up in an upcoming episode. If you enjoyed this content, or if we brought some value to your day, do us a favor and hit that thumbs up button. YouTube and Facebook both push videos based on community feedback, so every like, comment, subscribe, and share helps us to grow and reach more people. We'll be back next week on Wednesday, July 7th, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, with another show you won't want to miss. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.